an incredibly complex mystery, Alzheimer's disease, and looking at how artificial intelligence is stepping up as the ultimate medical detective. It's a really fascinating journey from lines of computer code all the way to potential real-world cures. Honestly, it completely changes everything we thought we knew about how we discover medicine. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this issue, let's look at a pretty staggering number. By 2024, the projected medical and caregiving costs for the 6.9 million Americans affected by Alzheimer's is going to hit $360 billion. I mean, the human and economic toll of this disease, which just slowly strips away memory and behavior, is massive. It's rapidly becoming one of the most burdensome diseases we face in the 21st century. But instead of waiting, decades for some brand new miracle drug to be formulated totally from scratch, we have to ask a pretty provocative question. What if the solution is actually already sitting right there on pharmacy shelves, just waiting to be discovered? What if we've literally had the keys to fighting this disease all along, but we just didn't know which locks they fit? Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the Alzheimer's challenge. Then, AI meets big data, unlocking genetic clues, old drugs, new hope, and finally, testing the theory. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the Alzheimer's challenge and traditional roadblocks. For decades now, researchers have been hitting a wall, struggling to piece together scattered clues, and mostly treating Alzheimer's as an unsolvable brain problem. Pinning down the exact genes and mechanisms driving it has been incredibly tough, which makes traditional drug development painfully slow, wildly expensive, and full of dead ends. Moving to Section 2, AI meets big data, or how they built a master investigator. To bypass those slow traditional roadblocks, researchers built a super detective. Essentially, they created an AI system that can speed read our genetic blueprints and spot hidden patterns across massive amounts of data, stuff no human could ever process on their own. To really get how this works, we need a quick primer on transcriptomics. This is basically the exact language our AI detective uses. Your DNA is your fixed blueprint. Actually, think of it more like a static reference manual. But your RNA, your transcriptomics, shows exactly which genes are actively being turned on or off right now. It's the live action translation of your genes into physical traits and, crucially, disease risks. Armed with that specific language, researchers created what they call the AD-MIF model. That stands for a Deep Multi-Layer Information Fusion AI. It's a total powerhouse designed specifically to cross-reference absolute mountains of genotype and gene expression data. It connects the microscopic dots between your genes, your body tissues, and Alzheimer's disease traits. And this right here is why AI is such a game changer. When you put it to the test, AD-MIF outsmarts standard machine learning models like logistic regression or random forest by a massive 10 to 20% in predicting disease traits. If you're wondering, area under the curve, or AUC, is just a fancy metric for prediction accuracy. This leap means the AI is catching incredibly complex information that older methods were totally blind to. Let's jump to Section 3, Unlocking Genetic Clues, way beyond the brain. We're going to see what this AI detective actually uncovered when it analyzed 61 different brain and nerve traits across 49 tissue models. The data proved something completely startling. Alzheimer's isn't just in the brain. Sure, the hippocampus and frontal cortex showed heavy involvement, but the AI revealed that genetic culprits are also super active in peripheral tissues, like the liver, the aorta, and the blood. This completely flips the narrative. It shows us that Alzheimer's actually involves widespread metabolic and vascular systems throughout the whole body. Digging even deeper, the AI named names. It identified specific accomplices. It flagged genes like APOE and APOC1, which literally hijack the body's cholesterol metabolism. It pointed to Nectin-2, which messes with the cellular immune response. And it singled out TOMM40, which actively damages mitochondrial function, basically destroying the cell's energy source. These genes aren't bystanders. They're the ones driving the damage. So here is the million-dollar question. Once we know the exact genetic culprits and exactly where they're operating, how do we find the weapons to stop them? That brings us to Section 4, Old Drugs, New Hope, and Drug Repurposing. The answer is drug repurposing. It's this incredibly ingenious shortcut that teaches old, already safe drugs entirely new tricks. Since we already know these drugs are perfectly safe for humans, we can completely skip those decades-long, super expensive safety trials and jump straight into seeing if they fix these newly discovered genetic glitches. Instead of inventing new chemicals from thin air, the AI rapidly cross-referenced our genetic culprits to find perfect therapeutic matches, and it found some amazing candidates, like dasatinib, which clears out senescent, or aging, cells that clog everything up, or sirolimus, which tweaks the immune system to slow down brain inflammation, and MGCD265, a drug showing massive, unprecedented potential in the AI's virtual screening. Now, this interaction network might look like a giant chaotic web at first glance, but it's actually a brilliant, hyper-specific roadmap. It shows exactly how the AI connects specific repurposed drugs straight to the problematic Alzheimer's genes in very specific tissues, like the aorta or whole blood. It gives researchers a literal map of which drug pulls which genetic lever. Of course, computer models are fantastic, but to really close this case, researchers had to prove these AI-selected drugs work in the real world. That takes us to our final part, Section 5, testing the theory, in vivo proof. They took this straight to the lab. They used a meticulous timeline on specially engineered SAMP8 mice. These are mice biologically engineered to have Alzheimer's symptoms. They gave them oral doses of dasatinib or MGCD265 for a few weeks. Then they put the mice through behavioral memory tests, followed up by some really deep tissue profiling under the microscope. And the physical proof is wild. The tracking data here maps out the swimming trajectories of the mice during a water maze test. The mice treated with the AI-selected drugs found the hidden platform significantly faster with way more focused swimming paths than the untreated group. They physically demonstrated restored memory and cognitive function. And it wasn't just behavioral. Under the microscope, the molecular results were absolutely undeniable. These all drugs successfully shut down severe neuroinflammation. Even better, they inhibited the pathological tau proteins and decreased the amyloid beta plaques that physically define Alzheimer's in the brain. The AI's prediction was just dead on. If you take away one thing from this explainer, it should be this. We are officially entering the era of personal medicine. It is no longer a one-size-fits-all approach. Soon, AI can look at your specific genetic blueprint and figure out exactly which repurposed drug will work best for your unique biology. Which leaves us with one final, thrilling thought to ponder. As AI keeps decoding our biology with this kind of pinpoint precision, how many other incurable diseases will be solved by the pharmacy down the street? This ultimate medical detective is just getting started. Thanks so much for exploring this data with me today.